everybody, so new review for you guys today. A very anticipated film, I feel. We're talking about The Kissing Booth 3. It's been quite an interesting journey to go on with this Kissing Booth trilogy. Can you believe that, actually? It's a Kissing Booth trilogy now. We've reached the final installment, though, as the third film will air on Netflix tomorrow. The story does pick up where we left things off at the end of the second film. Elle still has to choose between going to two different colleges. Is she gonna go to Berkeley with Lee, or is she gonna move across the country and go to Harvard with Noah? So there's a lot of tough decisions that lie ahead in her last summer before college. If you didn't know already going into this third Kissing Booth film that this was actually shot back to back with the second film, so more or less they do pretty much feel the exact same, so that could be a positive. I do have to commend them that they actually kept the same director for all three films in the trilogy, because that's not something you see very often, even on Netflix. Listen, we're 3 films in at this point with The Kissing Booth. More or less, I can understand why there are fans of these films. I do try to go into these films with an open mind each and every time, because I do enjoy a good rom-com, but these films just aren't for me. But there are some fun to be had with these films. Much like the first 2 Kissing Booth films, this installment also has some various upbeat and silly moments to it, most of which were quite fun, even if a lot of them did come in montage form. If you're a big fan of silly, goofy montages, this film has you covered because there's just so many of them. It gets kind of grating after a while, but some of them are enjoyable. Even if I wasn't a big fan of the overall story of the film, those aspects were at least somewhat entertaining. I think the most entertaining aspect was the big Mario Kart race they had where they dressed up like different Mario characters. Stuff like that. Very surreal, not something that you would see people do with their last summer before college, but for the surreal aspect of it, at least it was kind of fun. Thankfully, this time around, this film is a little bit shorter than that second Kissing Booth film. I have no idea why that second Kissing Booth film was like 2 hours and 14 minutes. That's just way too long. Thankfully, this one is a little bit under 2 hours long, which is still a very long film, but it's something I can understand in the context of finishing off a trilogy. It's just unfortunate that they really waste a lot of time with the story. It doesn't need to be this long. For the most part, the actual overall plot of the story is very stretched out. Outside of montage after montage, not many events really take place that move the plot forward, as the story does fill in the gaps with several subplots, some of which that are picked up and dropped at many different points throughout the film for no reason. Without going into too much detail, there are various ones that really don't contribute to the main storyline overall, whether it be Lee finding this new friend that also goes to Berkeley, and also Elle herself. She has this subplot going on with her dad dating this new woman who's also friends with her mom. Stuff like that. Stuff like that didn't need to be in this film to make this film almost 2 hours long. Elle herself makes the decision on which college she's going to within the first 15-20 minutes of the film. After that, she pretty much proceeds to make the worst decision with every single character she interacts with for the rest of the film as she decides more on her future. It almost seems like she's actively making the worst choices possible sometimes in this film. It's genuinely frustrating sometimes watching some decisions that Elle makes in this. I do actually enjoy Joey King a lot as an actress. I do think she has acting chops. We don't see that really in these Kissing Booth films all that much. I do think she is probably the highlight of these when it comes to the acting. The acting across the board isn't the greatest. I do think they're all trying their best with the material they're given, but the scripts and the dialogue they're given to say is just so bad and so cringy. I mean, you've seen it in the first 2 Kissing Booth films. It's about the same level when it comes to the screenplay writing. The way they incorporate characters from the second film, like Marco and Chloe, that feels pretty lazy overall to try and shoehorn them into this script just to add conflict. I was happy, though, to see Marco made it into the film because he was one of my favorite parts about the second film. One of the main things that's always held me back when it comes to these Kissing Booth films is the romance aspect, because I really am not a big fan of this relationship that we follow between Noah and Elle. For the most part, it's always felt very toxic in my opinion. It feels like it's really hit its peak toxicity in this third installment, as Noah keeps being jealous of Marco, just him existing. And also, he's just always arguing with Elle in this film. I really feel like there's not very many scenes in this third installment where they're not arguing with each other at some point, and that can just be very grating when you're trying to enjoy a romantic comedy. And with the way that the story is written, you kind of don't want them to be together anyways. It seems like the script is really rooting for you to have Elle and Marco to get together and Chloe and Noah to get together. I guess I will give them credit for subverting my expectations when it comes to what happens with the end when it comes to the romance aspect. If you don't know, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's definitely a weird direction to take your romantic comedy. It's actually unconventional even, I would say. With this being the end point of this franchise, I was expecting a much stronger conclusion to all of our storylines. However, practically none of the characters in the film really experience any sort of growth to their characters, even when they have these extended flashback scenes where we see these characters many years into the future. We really don't get a big sense of them learning anything or maturing much as characters, which was kind of a big disappointment. But yeah, overall, The Kissing Booth 3, it doesn't reinvent the wheel by any means. If you like the first 2 films in the trilogy, I think you're going to like this final installment as well. I don't think this is going to sell you on The Kissing Booth as a whole. If you're watching this for the first time, not seeing the other 2 films, you'll probably be very confused if you only watch this one. But it has some moments that are actually somewhat enjoyable for the most part. Like I said, it's not for me. I do try to at least give these a benefit of the doubt. There are some fun, enjoyable moments, but not enough for me to recommend. But I do think that you should check it out if you're a fan of the first 2 installments. Make sure you share your thoughts down below. Once you get a chance to check out The Kissing Booth 3 on Netflix, it'll be out on Netflix tomorrow. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Are you a fan of the film? Not a fan of the film? And if you have seen all 3 films in the Kissing Booth trilogy, which one is your favorite? I think honestly, probably mine is the first film. I think the first film is still, like, not the greatest, but I think it's still solid. And then I'd probably put this film over the second one. I just think the second one is just a big miss overall, and it's just way too long. Like, I had to rewatch it to remember everything for this third installment, and it was pretty rough for me. Anyway, thank you so much for checking my videos. I really appreciate it. Make sure you share your thoughts down below, because that's part of the fun of this all. Thank you as always for checking my videos. I really appreciate it. Make sure you like it, the subscribe button. We'll keep making reactions, unboxings, and more on the channel. But next time, I'll see you guys later.